Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Quaden show. Today we're gonna go overseas. We're gonna go to Germany. I know you guys are going, Dre, what the hell are you talking about? We're gonna go and talk to a news reporter, a journalist, a traveler, an educator. That's a lot of damn titles to have for one person. But today's story is about really one woman's journey into dual journalism skills. Why is that important today? Simply this. We hear so much propaganda from our news. We hear less from our other nations. It's interesting when you talk to other countries about their lifestyle and what they go through and what we go through, and the difference. There's always a difference in, I won't call it, let's call it journalism truth. And that was a good word. Let's call it journalism truth. But this young lady is going to take us down her journey and kind of, I guess, not debunk some of the myths and things, but some of the questions that you, the viewers, may have, as well as myself, as well as taking us down her life as a journalist abroad and in the United States. Like to welcome to the show. Make sure I get her last name right. Diana Lammerts. Lammerts. Did I get it right? No, I screwed it up, didn't I?
Lammerts, happy today's day.
I think I did get it right a little bit. Okay, beautiful last name, beautiful first name. Before we get deep into the journalism aspect of your life, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are first.
Well, as you said, born and raised in Germany, and my background is in journalism. I started at the radio. I went into TV as a reporter as well, then back to radio. And believe it or not, I'm an introvert. And usually people are like, how can you be an introvert
Yeah.
if you're like out there and millions of people hear you, or you're on stage and talk in front of thousands of people? It's because you're on a mission, you do what you're passionate about, and then the introvert turns into an extrovert because you want to get a message across, you want to tell people something amazing or something important. And that's how I ended up there. I thought, you know what, sounds nice, let me do it, and I did. And I stayed.
You know, you're from Germany, a totally different culture probably than the US. Why did you wind up picking journalism? I mean, when did that bug actually hit you?
So I always like to ask questions anyways. And a friend of mine said, you know what? Why don't you try an internship at a radio station? It's kind of cool, and just give it a try. And I was hesitant and I said no first. But during my life, one thing I learned is when I say it's rubbish, it's actually something. So I did. I just jumped in. My voice was not good to be on air at a point because I sounded like Minnie Mouse. So I had to practice night over and over and over again to get the proper voice, because nobody wants to hear, hi, my name is Diana. Like, nobody wants to hear that, right?
Right, right.
Especially when you end up on the news. And so yeah, it wasn't easy all the time. Like, I really had to work on my skill set in order to become the journalist I eventually became. You can't just like jump into it. And that's often very dangerous if people just say I'm actually in Germany. You have to go through a training in order to become an editor and journalist for 2.5 to 3 years.
I'm gonna ask this question, and that's only because I have no idea what it means, and that's the whole idea. When you don't know, you ask, what does rubbish mean?
Oh, trash. That, so in
Okay.
Germany, we learn British English, and I also lived for a while in the UK. So some words got stuck, even though I lived in the US as well. So my language and my vocabulary is basically a mix between the different countries I lived in.
Right.
For example, I say water like they say in Trinidad because I adapted it, and it's just a fun mix of all the different cultures I had the amazing opportunity to experience.
What is the culture like in Germany for you? Is it how would it relate to the U.S.? Because you've been to the U.S. Like, what is Germany like for someone that's never been? And let me tell you why I'm saying this. News abroad is very seldom probably watched in the United States. We focus on US news. And I don't know if that's the same in your country, but what is it where you from? What is it compared to the United States and why?
One thing I noticed is that a lot of people think Germany is like Bavaria, Oktoberfest and this huge beer and whatnot. We don't have that where I'm from. I'm from the West, like close to the Dutch border. We have different things. We grew up with different cultures during the coal mining era, and every state in Germany is different, and so is the culture. Just very diverse, just as it is in the US. We walk a lot, and what I learned actually from social media, and I didn't really pay attention to it, we stare. We don't mean anything by it. We just stare at people to maybe because you're curious and whatnot. And we are not funny. Our jokes are like a bunch of dad jokes. and, so we might have a sense of humor, but to me, it's a little weird. And what I noticed as well in the US, it's a lot of times like you have an opportunity, you can do whatever you want if you set your mind to it. And what I noticed here is that we don't. We always see, oh, but that can go wrong, that can go wrong. On the other hand, we are a lot prepared because we have plan A, B, C, and D. And once you make friends with Germans, they are very reliable as well. And it's interesting whenever I'm in a different country, I notice, oh, that's the same, that's different. And that's just an amazing experience.
When you mention a key word here, and um, this can be a global word, opportunity. You said
Yes.
that the concept in other countries is that they always label the United States as the land of opportunity, but you said it's a little bit different in your countries and other countries. Why do you think that is? Because I don't. I never got a clarification from people when they say, "How do you consider this the land of opportunity?" I think every place you go to, there's an opportunity. You just have to figure out which doors are going to open up for you, and then those opportunities become either available or none available. What's your take on that?
It's the mindset. It's a mindset. So when I meet fellow Germans here, especially having traveled to different countries, it's like, oh, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. This is not going to work. Why would I do that? In the US, I experienced people who had nothing, who had the opportunity to volunteer and then became a supervisor, then became a manager, and from going from nothing to buying their own house.
Mm.
So that part is amazing. Of course, we have a lot of amazing things here as well. If we talk about healthcare and whatnot, at the same time, we pay the taxes for it. So there's always like, pros and cons. But I think that it's the German mindset, and it needs to change. And hopefully with the younger generation, it will, because they travel more as well.
What needs to change? I mean, your field is journalism. You have dual journalism skills, so you also collaborate with such stations as Fox 5 here in the U.S., and you deal with your stations, your comrades abroad. But let's talk about just where you at right now in Germany. You broadcast the news. What are some of the things that you're seeing there that you said hopefully it will change? What are those things that need to be changed?
We need to go back to reporting, in my opinion. So when I started, like as a reporter, you have no opinion. And
Mm,
that doesn't matter if you like it where you're at or you don't. You hear both sides and you don't have a conclusion. Your audience is supposed to build it, to create the conclusion based on the information you provide. Of course, everything is always subjective, right? But even like us talking, if I see an apple, you see an apple, that's already subjective. We can't eliminate that part, but to stay neutral. And that's why I also left the news in Germany at one point as a news anchor, is because I didn't agree with it. So I went to the other side and became a publicist and PR specialist, but then realized I'm more of a strategic person. So now I help businesses to get the right people together and merge ecosystems, because I believe, despite people saying, "Oh, you need to know your competition," and we're competing against each other. What about working with each other in order to create something bigger? What if you bring people together with different skill set? A lot of times people are say, "Oh, what are you niched in?" I'm a multi hyphenate, and that's good, because the niche PR experts or strategic people, they see only one thing. I come in, I ask all the different questions. And then it's like, okay, so maybe you need an expert for this part or an expert for this part. But it's just like to come in and see the overall, and then go and ask for expert help and expert opinion, right? If you go to a doctor, you don't immediately go to a brain surgeon just because of a headache,
mm.
right? You go to a normal doctor and say, okay, something is not right. My head hurts, and it's the same. So, and it's a lot what I noticed also in social media that I can use from back in the days at the radio station. They always told us you have 3 seconds. If you can't get anyone in 3 seconds, you're done. So
Mm.
you better make sure your headline is straight.
When you talk about the news, we hear a lot of what is a lot of you guys' news based around? Like here is based around a lot of political agenda versus, you know, entrepreneurships, and so if it's either political or it's crime related. It's not a lot of economic mind development, so to speak. But what's the news like where you're at? And you mentioned something that you left. When you left, was it because your vision wasn't being implemented at the station? And if it wasn't, was it because what do you think the reason was?
Because the news changed. We had less time to prepare, to do proper research and whatnot. So we went on air with what we had, right? And that's actually why I love AI, because it can help you to get more time to do a deeper dive into a matter. And I think that is basically the reason why I went to the other side, also in order to help people to get heard. And you ask about what are the topics. Well, if you go to national news, yes, it's politics. It's always sports and weather. You can never. So one time we had a client, and he was supposed to be in the main evening news with his father's artwork. It's like the longest painted Bible, and it was unfolded. We had a world record, and they canceled it because there were two elections, one in France, one in Germany, and it was just about elections. And then there was sports and the weather, because you never you cannot cancel sports and you cannot cancel the weather. So it always depends on different factors, and that's also how people can actually get their business, their story into the news. It's like, do you check the boxes? Like, should you start locally rather than going national? Because that's actually where your target group is. They have more stories, or rather a story that is regarding a person that lives locally than making it on national news.
You mentioned AI.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it makes the journalism aspect a little bit more sharpen the skills. But to me, with the development of AI, it seems like it will minimize the creativity of the journalists. I mean, if the machine is going to do almost, let's get real, almost 85 to 90% of your thinking, because it's based on the input that you put into the device. I mean, how do you actually become creative? Because it takes your minimum thought and it escalates it to a level that you're no longer in control of the story or the creativity. It's no longer your piece.
That's a great question, actually. It's the same, like, for example, if I enter a prompt into AI in order to create a picture, or a graphic designer does it, my picture is not going to look as good as the graphic designers, because that person has a skill set. They know, they can imagine how something is supposed to look like and describe it. I don't have that skill set. I can't create those beautiful images with AI that graphic designers can. And that is because they are creative. They need to come up with something to describe how that computer is supposed to create that image. And
Mm.
if you're not creative, and if you just say like whatever, and you still have to double check and research and to make changes and whatnot, it's like, when you do pancakes, you still, if you have a pancake mix, or do you always do them from scratch? But even if you have a pancake mix, you put your own little, you know, thing to it in order to make them like taste unique.
Right.
And I believe that's the same. It's just taking the groundwork of people, but you always have to say, I would never ever have something published that is not double checked, that is not rewritten by myself. So it's not that I take a text and then, oh, that's AI. No, that is just basically the base
Mhm.
of everything. Then you build on it.
You've worked on both sides of the spectrum in the news field, both U.S. and abroad. What's the difference, in your opinion, with the two?
Well, that's something I also heard from Americans that moved to Germany. They say we are more, our more news is more diverse. It is not as much as about having already an opinion of something, but rather reporting. However, in my opinion, that changes as well. So there are some outlets that are actually do have a very strong opinion on things and are voicing them. But from my experience, is our news channels are more diverse and have the news not just from one party or one angle, but from different ones.
When you guys are when you guys are watching U.S. news, is it how do you determine what you're going to broadcast as it comes from the United States to your country? Like, what are you looking for that will be considered newsworthy in your country? And is certain things propaganda that you go, we don't want to put that in on our news feed as it relates to the
Well,
U.S.?
you don't just always adapt. So what we have correspondents out there as well, and then they basically watch the news, and then they go out and either they shoot their own footage, or they are taking the footage from a news station, but they still write their own story on it. It's not that we have news reporters and their reports on our tally. It's always someone who is a correspondent over there.
Is there certain things that is taboo that you guys will not broadcast or find newsworthy, or that can cause something unnecessary to happen in your country?
I Well, the newsworthiness always depends on how many boxes are checked, right? And the thing is, no one can always tell you, oh, you're going to be, if someone says you have guaranteed publication,
Mhm.
nothing is guaranteed. Even when I was I had my show, I could only guarantee you once it was broadcasted, because sometimes in the middle of a show, someone would come in and said, "Oh, there's breaking news. We need to drop everything and just do this one and the and sports and the weather and traffic." Um, so it depends on the different news factors boxes that are being checked.
Do you guys really pay attention to what's going on in the United States? Seriously?
I believe so. I remember like when I did the morning show as a producer, when there was elections, that we were talking about the US elections all morning. And based on my experience with the US, I actually was a translator and would translate what the American stations say, and then I would go into the studio and talk with our host and whatnot. So yeah, there are differences. There are differences.
When you guys are dealing with such things as politics and stuff as it relates to the US and you're a news reporter, how deep do you guys get involved in it? Like not just from a news standpoint, but I'm pretty sure you guys get ratings from the actual people that live in Germany and abroad. Is are they really that concerned about what goes on in this country?
Um, I would believe so. So I have no insight on those ratings because I'm not at the radio station anymore. So that's why I don't have the insights in general. But Germans are like, the other day I was sitting at the doctor and someone said, "Oh, let's go over there and just vote for others." you know, people know what's going on in the US, and they know, um, you know, about elections and so forth. Maybe they are not as interested as in different cities as I am, for example. But then again, I live there, so yeah.
What do you like best? You like news and you like working in Germany or you like the US and why?
Well, I've been working remotely since 2010, and I love to travel, experience different countries, and I think that just broadens your horizon. You learn more, you learn the similarities, you learn the difficult differences, and it's just an amazing experience. And that's why I really love what I'm doing. And it helped me that I was working in the news in
Mhm.
my current profession as a PR specialist and business strategist, because I can help people form their copy and their pitches and whatever they do, and help them with a strategy. Because the misunderstanding is a lot of times people, when they hear public relations, they think about publicists, it's just to get into the media, but public relations is so much more. It's strategy, it's be prepared. For example, there was this amazing event that wanted to raise awareness for a good cause, and they had millions of balloons going up in the air. It's on Google, you can look it up. And nobody really considered that the weather could change, and something that was supposed to be amazing ended up in a catastrophe. And that's why, and that's maybe also the German in me, you should always be prepared when you go out there and post something, or go out there and have an event and whatnot, that you look at it from all different angles as well. And that's also like the reporters do, like you look at things at different angles. That's why I said my background helped me a lot in order to help others right now in kind of the same but different industry, that's basically being on the other side.
You mentioned something that I found interesting, an interesting topic. The mass exodus of Americans moving to Mexico. And I found that interesting because that's something that the news media here in the United States do not talk about. We hear about the mass exodus of Mexicans coming into this country, uh, legally and illegally, but I never heard of a community that was flourished during COVID. And you're telling me that there's tons and tons of people from the United States that are packing up and moving into Mexico. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I would be careful with the word mass exodus because some people might think and they have the same images in their head, like, when the news media shows Mexican and immigrants coming over to the US, it would be the same other vice versa. But there are different communities in Mexico, and more people who decide to spend the majority of their time there and building their own little communities, not just from the US, but also from the West Indies coming together. And that is something I experienced that I wasn't aware of.
Now, are these little remote cities in Mexico um are these like what cities are these? They're not Tijuana and nothing like that. These are like other cities that I probably never heard of.
Well, it's all from I'm at the in Quintana Roo, which is on the Caribbean side, and a lot of people. It started in Tulum and then Playa del Carmen, Cancun, and that area. But there are also people in Oaxaca and in Mexico City who moved there and are enjoying their lives. But there are also living people who are moving, or Americans who are moving to Asia in order to live there. So they're basically working remotely, but they live in a different country because from what they say is their work life balance is just different and better, and they feel safer sometimes. And yes, and it is. So where I live, it is quite safe. And I also lived in Vegas. I mean, like it's so
I
uh,
mean, I
it's
just never really heard of it. I mean, this is a first. I didn't know that people were moving to Mexico and other places, especially to have a better life. And that is safer. I'm like, where did this come from? But I mean, you've been there, you visited, but when you say they feel safer and a better quality of life, what do they mean when they say that? When they say that to you, do they break it down a little bit more? Because if this is the land of opportunity, how are you going to have any better life?
well, the majority still has American clients, works for American clients, but the topic's racism, for example, they experience less racism in other countries, and there are some that even lived in China, and they said, "Oh, it was actually a nice life, and it was, people were rather curious. I don't have to be scared." And yeah, it's just the rents are cheaper, and that's basically they feel safer over there.
Why do you think that nobody has reported anything about this? To me, that's an opportunity. If people want to go there and it's a community that's safe and other opportunities, I mean, why do you think nobody has reported on it? Because this is the first I've ever heard of anything remotely like this.
Because maybe the numbers are not high enough, maybe it doesn't check the news boxes, and that's what also social media shows you. Social media is your algorithm, right? And you can always keep your algorithm clean. That's how I call it. So if you go on TikTok, Instagram, and whatnot, and you say, oh, it's all dancing, all drama, that's you. So if you stop at certain topics, for example, my TikTok is all AI and culture and learning and growing and technology, right? At the same time, others is only about dancing. It is what you make it. It's the same with AI. It is what you make it. And if you go on social media and get onto that, right now what's trending is over 40, over 50 TikTok. So they are in the new target group. And if you go on living abroad TikTok, then you see how people are actually reporting like, this is my life in Mexico, this is my life in Thailand. That is, there's one American, she lives in Germany, and it's so interesting to hear her talk, to see like, okay, so those are the German stereotypes. I'm not really the only one who thinks like that, like others see it as well. I learned from her that we have the German stare, and I also learned from her that people change when they come to Germany, with all the recycling and the walking, and that we actually, that's, like walk in the park. We do that a lot, apparently, and it doesn't matter what weather it is. So it's interesting to see others experience a country through their eyes.
Before we wrap up, you now have taken your journalism career and put it into PR. Why the transition for the two? And I like your saying here where you said if you have a problem, I'll find a solution. That's deep. So why the sudden transformation and what do you plan to get out of it?
I transformed because I noticed that the news wasn't what it was when I started. But the thing is, like, when you get older, it's never like it was. It was always better back then. Like our grandparents said that, our parents said that, we say that, and probably our children, grandchildren will say that as well one day. And I just noticed, okay, I want to do something different, and I'm okay with not constantly being on air and not constantly being on stages. I've done all of that, right? So you want to grow, you want to experience something new as well. And I was substitute editor in chief, and once you've been doing, either you stay there, and to me, staying somewhere and not growing is actually regressing. And so I just switched sides, and I noticed, you know what, that's amazing. I can help more people. I can bring people together. I can make a difference, because when you connect people and merge ecosystems, they can create amazing things. And that oftentimes there are businesses out there, and they're like, oh, we're kind of stuck, or they don't even see the opportunities they have. They think, oh, in order to get media time, we need to do this and this and this. Like, no, like there are different ways in order to get airtime, in order to approach, in order to, let's say you're a speaker, but in general, as a speaker, all the thought leaders, if you are on air, everyone would only be a thought leader. No, like go on air as an expert in your field,
Hmm.
you know. And there's so many others as well. Ben Jones, for example, like he is a political expert, but at the same time he does motivational speaking as well, and he's on stages, he talks about like grit and growing and whatnot. And that's the key.
How expensive is it to have a PR agent and how important is it to have a PR agent?
It differs on what you do. To me, it's important to have a strategy, because otherwise you can have as many PR agents as you want. You
Mhm.
just waste your money and your time, right? If you don't have a strategy, as in, do I really need that, or do I just want that? So um, in order to figure out, like, let's say you only have a certain budget, do you buy a BMW, or do you buy a different kind of car in order to get somewhere? What is your goal? Some may say, no, 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 you need to have that BMW in order to get there. No, you don't. Like, don't let people tell you anything. Like, know what you want, get a good strategy, and then know what the add-ons are and what the must-haves are. And then you're good to go. And when you're growing, you can have all the add-ons you want.
How do you determine the strategy plan when you're dealing with individuals? I know it's a business. You have to make money. They have to make money. But how thorough are you in your initial consultation with individuals to know exactly what they need when you're? How do you determine what they need?
I ask questions because how do I know? I wouldn't know if I didn't listen to you. So if you don't tell me what your problem is, what your wish is, where you want to go. For example, I had this one client and he said, I want to, he found his father's artwork in the attic, right? And it's this unique book, it really like 3,333 images just painted, bringing people together, which is a painted Bible. There are no words. There's no friction because words are basically taking us apart because everyone interprets something differently, right? So his wish was, I want to make my father's artwork famous and want to get it out there. And that's what we worked on. That's what we did. And he ended up having a world record. He met the Pope. He had an exhibition in the US for over a year. And you know, it depends on what you want, where you want to go, how much work you want to put into it, and what your dreams are.
This was a project that you did with this individual?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. And you work abroad and in the US.
Yes, I work in all different time zones. So depending on where I am, no one I'm on Central Time. That's what I always say. And so that nobody needs to worry about is she available or not. I'm always working on different time zones. So when I was in a different country and someone needed to talk, I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and just, you know, have that business call if need be.
Do you miss do you miss broadcasting, television anchoring and all that? Do you miss it?
Um, Sometimes I do. It's the thrill. Like one time we had a hurricane, not a tornado, but it's like just to compare. The tornadoes in the US are not like our tornadoes. Our tornadoes are like itsy bitsy compared to the US tornadoes, right? So and
Itsy
the
bitsy.
whole
Is there really an itsy bitsy tornado?
honestly it's like compared if there's an earthquake somewhere else other than California, but Californians say like, okay, like I don't even care, and others would freak out.
Yeah.
So it's like that. And so I was outside and reported, and I was in my car and my car was moving, and I miss that, you know, I miss that part. But luckily we don't always have those situations. At the same time, I'm still doing shows, you know, and doing interviews, but I don't. Yeah, it's sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But what I have now is I can see the faces of the people that I work with, and that moment when they realize, oh my gosh, we did it. It
Mm.
was a long way, and PR is not, there's not an immediate ROI, right? It's like working out. Like you go to the gym 3 times, do you already like, are you buff? Are you lean? No, you're not. Like, you know, some people have to work out for 3 4 years,
Mm.
right? So but then all of a sudden you look into the mirror, it's like, oh, where do these abs come from? You
Mm. Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And but it's the same with PR. All of a sudden, but it's not all of a sudden. It was the work all those years prior, that where you built an expertise for people to take you seriously in order to get where you are.
How do you know if you, before we wrap up, how do you know if you need a PR agent? Like who is the primary candidate for a PR uh, representative? Not, we know athletes and political figures, but let's just talk about the main mojo out there that's trying to take his career to, or her career to the next level. Who, who is the, what kind of candidate should have a PR outside of the people that I just mentioned?
Well, even small businesses, it can help them get into local news media. Some say, oh, but I don't have the budget. Well, I'm always happy to teach so that you can do it yourself. It's just like, you know, here are the basics, and there you basic where you can't go wrong with. Of course, you know, when it comes to crisis, that's a different thing. You always should consider, okay, what can go wrong. But it helps everyone, if you, even if you have a small business, in order to get into local news media and start there, and in order to build your expertise as an expert in your field.
Who do you like working with the best, businesses or individuals, and why?
It it depends. It depends on the goal that they have. I love a challenge. I just love a challenge, and the different experiences for the client that I mentioned. I sat in his father's attic and did like almost like investigative journalism work in order to find things out. Or another client who's an amazing thought leader is to see how he changes lives. So it's different. It's different. But at the same time, even the companies, the businesses, they have someone who's the face of it. So you still work with the person.
Yeah, but a lot of people, when you hear that word PR, you I mean, the first thing that registers is dollars and cents. I mean, roughly how I know prices vary, so I know this is just hypothetically speaking, but for the viewers who may or may not be interested, well, if you're listening, you're interested. What are some of the what are some of the starting figures? You don't have to give in to all of them, but what's a pretty good starting? What can somebody look for to pay out of their pocket when they first come in for a basic PR representation?
Well, as you mentioned, like PR is very widespread, right? So a lot of people consider PR media relations, but public relations is also networking, connecting people with each other. So it's quite different. If you just want to be on the wire and like have a press release out there and do that, it can be between, depending on what you want, between 500 and 1,000. If you want to have paid media exposure, it depends on how much the different outlets are asking for in order, because it's advertisement, right?
Is
So
that
it's
that
just
pay
like
to is that pay to play? Like if you want to be on Good
pay
Morning
to play.
America, it's going to cost you $9,000 just to go on Good Morning America. Is that what you're talking about, the pay for play type thing?
It is, yes, it's pay for play. Like when you have secured coverage, that is usually pay for play, because as I said, no one can, just like back then we had the whole camera team out there, the whole reporter team was out there and shot the world record and everything, and then it was canceled right before the major news show. That segment was not aired because things change, so you can never promise. Organic media is organic, right? Just like when you buy an apple, it just like goes bad at one point, and organic media doesn't stay forever. It's organic.
So how did you don't have to give your secret, but if I gave my resources for that particular event, let's stick on that thing, and for some reason it changed, what happens to my investment?
That's organic media. Like, you cannot influence. If you want to secure, if you really want to have like, okay, I want for certain, then it's pay for play. But organic media is just what it is. It's not in our hands. It's just not in our hands. It's like, you bake a souffle, and then when you open the door and it just puffs, and then what is the outcome? Well, it's gone. So there is no security in organic media that it will definitely air. But
Hmm.
the thing is, at the same time, the world record was the world record. So, and he was in the afternoon news. So, but that is nothing you and I could influence, because that decision is being made by the chief editors.
Wow, I learned something today. So it's organic is not guaranteed. Pay per play
Never.
is guaranteed, but it comes with a healthy out of pocket expense depending on the particular program that you're trying to attach your brand to. Correct? Wow, such great
It's
information.
just like putting the news on the what so-called wire, right? If you send a press release out and it is being published on sometimes Yahoo News and whatnot, not everything on Yahoo News is organic. A lot of times it's actually paid for, and that's why it's published. So again, organic news media is never a given.
Wow. How can the viewers, first of all, thank you so much for taking time to come on and educate the viewers on the importance of and the understanding of having a PR and media relations individual, and to share with us your journey through journalism. Like hats off to you guys. I know you guys put in a lot of work out there in the field to try to bring us the best informative news possible. But how can the viewers reach out to you?
They can reach out to me through social media. It's my name, Diana Lammerts, DianaLammerts, or my website, dlmediaai.com. And just reach out. And if they have questions, I always happy to have a quick call, have some brainstorming, have some ideas. Sometimes it's right in front of you and you don't even see it. That's why a multi-hyphenate is perfect. And then I love to connect people when I see, okay, you need an expert for this. That is not my expertise. I'm a person that is always happy to send people or connect people with someone else. And at the same time, what I would say, I'm the happiest person when I'm wrong, because that means everything went well. That means I didn't need plan B, C, D. That means plan A were just right there. So a lot of times people don't like to be wrong. Right. I'm like, man, if I'm wrong, everything was amazing. So sometimes like clients say, oh, Diana, you're such a Grinch. No, I'm not. I'm just prepared.
Yeah.
I'm just prepared that things can happen and
Right.
look at them. And that there could be a shitstorm because you don't have diversity on your team, for example, because you don't see what they see, because you have this mindset, or it's just not even like what you don't know, right? So if you have a diverse team or someone who's looking from different angles, you can prepare yourself. And let me tell you, crisis PR is very expensive. Bad PR is very, very costly, because it's yeah.
It makes
you're at the risk to get canceled, so you don't want to get canceled, so you need to turn it around. And some people, they have amazing PR strategists, and then they have a little scandal, but maybe that was all planted. It was just too perfect how they turned it around and how they were prepared, right? And a lot of times people think like, oh, if I don't say it, it won't come out. Well, being proactive is sometimes better than being reactive.
You sound like a lawyer. We got to put you on retainer. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show and share such a wealth of knowledge to the viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.